The last thing I remembered was the bite of the ice, sharp and unforgiving against my shattered leg. Then the screech of tires, a blur of headlights, and nothing. Just a hollow, echoing silence. Not the kind of silence you find in a quiet room, but the vast, empty silence of non-existence. And then I woke up. My head throbbed, a dull ache that seemed to resonate deep within my bones. I blinked, trying to clear the fog from my mind. The room was familiar. My room. Same pale blue walls, same cluttered desk, same view of the maple tree outside my window. But something was off. I glanced at the calendar on my nightstand. October 15th, 1 year before the Olympics. A wave of dizziness washed over me, followed by a chilling realization. I remembered. The accident Celeste had orchestrated, the sickening crack of my leg, the pitying looks from my parents, their unwavering focus on Celeste, their golden girl, their Olympic hope, and then the other accident, the one that came after. Celeste's rage, her desperate attempt to silence me forever, the cold, hard pavement. It wasn't a dream, it was real. All of it. How? My mind raced, trying to grasp the impossible. Rebirth? Was that even possible? It sounded like something out of a cheesy fantasy novel, not my life. But here I was, back in my bed. A year before everything went to hell. The bitterness was still there. A rancid taste in my mouth. The anger too, a burning ember in my chest. But beneath it, a tiny spark flickered. An opportunity. A second chance. The door creaked open, and my parents walked in. "Morning, Isla," my mother said, her voice perfunctory. "Celeste's already at the rink. She's working on her triple axel. Coach says she's looking Olympic ready." My father nodded in agreement. "She's going to make us proud." They didn't even ask how I was feeling. Of course they didn't. I was just Isla. The spare, the afterthought. The one who was good enough to train on her own. "Yeah, great," I mumbled, my voice flat. "I'll just be here?" They exchanged a quick glance, a mixture of relief and dismissal in their eyes. They didn't care what I did, as long as I stayed out of Celeste's way. As they left, I clenched my fists. This time, things would be different. This time, I wouldn't be a victim. I wouldn't let Celeste steal my dream, my life, from me again. This time, I would win. Celeste pirouetted across the ice, her movements precise and graceful. My parents watched her, their faces beaming with pride. She was their masterpiece, their ticket to Olympic glory. And me? I was just there, a spectator in my own life. They were so wrapped up in Celeste's world, so blinded by her supposed talent, that they barely noticed me anymore, which was exactly how I wanted it. "She's looking Olympic ready," I thought sarcastically, echoing my mother's words from earlier. More like Olympic obsessed. Celeste's entire existence revolved around skating. It was her identity, her everything. And it was also her biggest weakness. I watched them, a detached observer in my own family drama. They were so predictable, so easily manipulated. Their smug confidence was almost comical. They genuinely believed that Celeste was unbeatable, that she was destined for greatness. They had no idea that their golden girl was about to face some serious competition. Time to play the part of the disinterested sister, I thought, stifling a smirk. I needed them to believe that I had given up, that I was no longer a threat. That way, they would never see me coming. Later that day, Celeste found me in my room, supposedly relaxing, with a book. "Hey," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Just got back from practice. Coach says I'm nailing the triple axel. It's basically a lock for the Olympics." "Cool," I replied, not bothering to look up from my book. "Good for you." She lingered for a moment, clearly expecting more of a reaction. When I didn't give her one, she huffed and walked away. Hook, line, and sinker, I thought. She has no clue. As soon as I was sure they were all asleep, I slipped out of the house and headed to the local rink. It was deserted at this hour, the ice gleaming under the pale moonlight. Perfect. I laced up my skates, the familiar feel of the blades against the ice sending a shiver of excitement through me. It had been a while since I'd skated seriously, but the muscle memory was still there. I started with the basics, regaining my strength and technique. I pushed myself harder than I ever had before, driven by a burning desire to surpass Celeste, to prove them all wrong. As I skated, memories flooded back. Memories of past training sessions, the constant comparisons to Celeste, the lack of support from my parents. Celeste is so graceful, they would say. Celeste has such potential. And me, I was just adequate, good enough to fill the background, but never good enough to shine. Those memories, the pain and the resentment, fueled my determination. I wouldn't let them define me. I wouldn't let Celeste win again. This time, I would be the one standing on the podium. This time, I would be the one wearing the gold medal. The biting wind whipped at my face, but I barely noticed. I needed the solitude, the vast emptiness of the frozen lake. The rink was too public, too close to prying eyes. Here, miles from town, surrounded by nothing but ice and snow, I could be myself, or rather the self I was determined to become. The rhythmic glide of my blades against the ice was hypnotic. Each stroke, each turn was a release, a way to shed the weight of the past and the anxieties of the future. I closed my eyes, letting the music in my head guide me. I wasn't just skating, I was dancing, expressing all the emotions I kept bottled up inside. I launched into a complex routine, a combination of technical precision and raw emotion. I poured my heart and soul into every jump, every spin, every graceful movement. This wasn't just practice. It was an act of defiance, a declaration of my intent. I was Isla, and I was going to be heard. I didn't notice him until I finished. I opened my eyes, panting slightly, and saw a figure standing at the edge of the lake, watching me. He was older, with a weathered face and piercing blue eyes. He wore a thick, dark coat that seemed to blend into the shadows. He approached me slowly, his footsteps crunching on the snow. "That was impressive," he said, his voice surprisingly strong. I tensed, suddenly self-conscious. "Thanks," I mumbled. "You have a gift," he continued. "Raw talent, passion. It's all there." I frowned. "Who are you?" He smiled, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Viktor Kozlov." The name sent a shiver down my spine. Viktor Kozlov, the legendary figure skating coach, a recluse for years, rumored to be living somewhere in the wilderness. What was he doing here? I know who you are," I stammered. "I've been watching you for a while, Isla," he said. "I remember watching you at the regional championships years ago," he continued. "You were just a kid, but you had something special. Something untamed." He paused, his gaze intense. "You could have been great, Isla. Truly great. But you were never given the right guidance." My heart pounded in my chest. Was this really happening? "I'm retired now," he said. "But I'm willing to make an exception. I'll train you. If you want." I stared at him, speechless. Viktor Kozlov offering to coach me? It was unbelievable. "There's one condition," he added, his voice firm. "You have to let go of this need to prove yourself to your family. You have to skate for yourself, Isla. Not for their approval, not for revenge, for yourself." His words struck a chord deep within me. He was right. I had spent so long trying to earn their love, their recognition, that I had forgotten what it was like to skate for the pure joy of it. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I'll do it." A smile spread across Victor's face. "Good," he said. "Then let's get to work." My training with Victor was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was brutal, relentless, and utterly transformative. He pushed me beyond my perceived limits, both physically and mentally. Every muscle in my body screamed in protest. Every nerve ending fired with exhaustion. But I endured. I had to. Victor's methods were unconventional, to say the least. He wasn't just interested in refining my technique. He was determined to forge my mind into a weapon. "Technique without control is meaningless," he would growl, his voice like gravel. "You must master your emotions, Isla. Channel your anger, your frustration, your fear. Use them as fuel." He challenged me constantly, probing my insecurities, forcing me to confront the ghosts of my past. "You think you're not good enough?" he'd sneer. "Is that what your parents told you? Is that what your sister made you believe?" I gritted my teeth, fighting back tears. "No," I'd reply, my voice trembling. "I'm better than that." "Prove it," he'd snap. "Show me." And I would. I'd push myself harder, faster, stronger, until I collapsed on the ice, gasping for breath. But I'd always get back up, because Victor was right. I was better than that. I was stronger, more resilient. I was a survivor. "You skate like a wounded animal," he said one day, his eyes narrowed. "Full of rage, but lacking grace. You need to find the balance, Isla. Harness the fire, but don't let it consume you." He spent hours working with me on my artistry, teaching me how to express emotion through movement, how to connect with the music, how to captivate an audience. He showed me how to transform my anger into power, my frustration into determination. "You're not just a figure skater, Isla," he said. "You're an artist, a storyteller. You use your body as your instrument, your emotions as your paint. Create something beautiful." And I did. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to transform. My movements became more fluid, more graceful. My jumps were higher, my spins faster. My artistry blossomed, reflecting the newfound confidence and self-belief that was growing within me. I wasn't just skating anymore. I was performing. I was telling my story, my truth, with every twist and turn, every leap and glide. I was no longer just Isla, the overshadowed sister. I was Isla, the artist, the competitor, the survivor. I was me. The change within me was profound. I was stronger, more confident, more self-assured. I no longer craved my parents' approval. I didn't need Celeste's validation. I knew my worth. I knew what I was capable of. And I knew that I was going to win. The local rink became my battleground. Under the guise of extra practice, I started competing in smaller events, using a pseudonym, Isabel Moreau, to avoid attracting unwanted attention. It felt strange at first, performing under a different name, but it was necessary. I needed to hone my skills, to test my routines in front of an audience, without alerting my family to my plans. And I won, consistently. Each competition, each victory, fueled my confidence. I was climbing the ranks, quietly and methodically, like a predator stalking its prey. My performances were gaining notice within the local skating community, whispers of a rising star circulating among coaches and judges. But my parents remained blissfully unaware. They were still completely fixated on Celeste, their Olympic dream. Her training had intensified, her schedule packed with practice sessions, media appearances, and endorsement deals. They were so busy basking in her reflected glory that they barely noticed I existed. One evening at dinner, I casually mentioned that I had won another competition. "Oh, that's nice, dear," my mother said, not even looking up from her plate. "Celeste's working on a new triple Lutz. It's breathtaking." "Yeah, well," I replied, my sarcasm barely concealed. "Mine was adequate." My father chuckled. "Don't worry, Isla. You'll get there eventually. Just keep practicing." Get where? I thought. To the Olympics? To their good graces? They still saw me as the good enough daughter, the one who would never measure up to Celeste. It was almost laughable. News of my victories eventually reached Victor. He watched my performances online, his expression unreadable. When I saw him next, he simply nodded. "You're progressing nicely, Isla," he said. "But remember, these are just stepping stones. The real test is yet to come." He was right, of course. The Olympics were the ultimate proving ground, and I was determined to be ready. Meanwhile, Celeste was starting to crack under the pressure. The weight of expectations, the constant scrutiny, was taking its toll. She became increasingly paranoid, seeing rivals everywhere, convinced that everyone was trying to sabotage her. Her smiles seemed forced, her laughter brittle. The golden girl was losing her shine, and I, in the shadows, was waiting for my moment to emerge. The Olympic qualifiers loomed large, a dark cloud on the horizon. The closer they got, the more the pressure mounted. Doubt, that insidious little beast, began to gnaw at the edges of my confidence. What if I'm not good enough? The question echoed in my mind, a relentless refrain. What if I choke? What if I fail? I remembered the crushing disappointment of my past defeat, the way my parents had barely acknowledged my efforts. Celeste is the real talent, they'd said. You should be more like your sister. The sting of their indifference was still fresh, a raw wound that refused to heal. I had spent so long trying to prove myself to them, to earn their love and approval. But what if it was all for nothing? What if I was destined to fail, to always be in Celeste's shadow? I confided in Victor, pouring out my fears and anxieties. He listened patiently, his expression unreadable. When I was finished, he simply said, "Doubt is a liar, Isla. It whispers falsehoods, preys on your insecurities. Don't listen to it." But what if it's true? I asked, my voice trembling. What if I'm not meant to be a champion? Victor's eyes hardened. You've come too far, Isla, to let doubt cripple you now. You've trained harder than anyone I know. You've pushed yourself beyond your limits. You have the talent, the skill, the determination. Trust in yourself. Trust in your training. No, His words were like a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink. He was right. I couldn't let fear control me. I had to believe in myself, in my ability to overcome any obstacle. I decided to revisit the scene of my accident. The frozen lake was deserted, the ice shimmering under the pale winter sun. I stood there for a long time, remembering the pain, the fear, the despair. But this time, something was different. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt empowered. I had survived, I had overcome, and I would not let the past define me. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let go of the fear. I was not doing this for my parents. I was not doing this for revenge. I was doing this for me, for the little girl who had dreamed of Olympic glory, for the young woman who had been denied her chance. This time, I would not be denied. This time, I would win. The day of the qualifiers dawned cold and crisp. The arena buzzed with anticipation, the air thick with tension. Celeste was up first, her name announced with the usual fanfare. She glided onto the ice, her face pale but determined. Her performance was technically flawless, her jumps executed with precision, her spins tight and controlled. But something was missing. The spark, the passion, the joy. It was gone, replaced by a grim determination that bordered on desperation. I watched from the sidelines, my heart pounding in my chest. I could see the nervousness in her eyes, the forced smile that didn't quite reach them. She was skating for her life, for her parents' approval, for the validation she so desperately craved. But she wasn't skating for herself. When her music ended, the applause was polite but subdued. Celeste bowed, her face etched with a mixture of relief and disappointment. She knew she hadn't delivered her best. She knew she was losing her grip. Then it was my turn. My name, Isabelle Moreau, echoed through the arena. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and focused on Victor's words. Skate for yourself, Isla. Tell your story. I stepped onto the ice, the cold surface a welcome shock to my senses. The music started, a haunting melody that spoke of loss and redemption. I began to move, my body flowing with the rhythm, my heart soaring with the music. This wasn't just a competition, it was a release, a culmination of all the pain, the frustration, the years of being overlooked and underestimated. I poured every ounce of emotion into my performance, every jump, every spin, every graceful gesture. I was no longer just skating. I was flying, defying gravity, defying expectations. The crowd was mesmerized. They watched, breathless, as I spun and leapt, my body a blur of motion, my expression a canvas of raw emotion. I could feel their energy, their excitement, feeding my own. I was in the zone, completely immersed in the moment, lost in the beauty of my own creation. When the music ended, the silence was deafening. Then, the applause erupted, a tidal wave of sound that washed over me. I stood there panting, tears streaming down my face as the cheers and whistles echoed through the arena. I had done it. I had shown them what I was capable of. The results were announced. Isabelle Moreau, first place. Celeste, a distant second. Her face crumpled, her eyes filled with disbelief and anger. My parents, their faces etched with shock and confusion, finally realized what they had missed. Their golden girl had been eclipsed. Their spare daughter had become a star. But I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at Victor, who stood at the edge of the rink, a small smile playing on his lips. He nodded, his eyes filled with pride. I had done it. I had won. Not for them, but for myself. The locker room was a whirlwind of emotions. I could barely register the congratulations from the other skaters, the excited chatter, the flashes of cameras. My mind was still replaying my performance, the roar of the crowd, the feeling of pure triumph. Then the door burst open and my parents stormed in, their faces a mask of fury. "Ayla, what is the meaning of this?" My mother shrieked, her voice laced with indignation. "Isabel Moreau, you've been deceiving us this whole time?" My father's face was red with anger. "We thought you'd given up on skating. And now this? Stealing the spotlight from your sister right before the Olympics?" "Stealing the spotlight?" I retorted, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Funny, I don't recall you ever shining a spotlight on me." "Don't you dare talk back to us," my mother snapped. "Celeste is the one with the talent, the dedication, the Olympic dream. You're just trying to sabotage her chances." Before I could respond, Celeste pushed past our parents, her eyes blazing with fury. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" she hissed. "Sneaking around, hiding your little talent. Well, guess what? It won't last. You'll never beat me. Never." "Oh, really?" I challenged, meeting her gaze. "And why is that?" "Because I'm better than you," she spat. "Always have been, always will be." A wave of nausea washed over me. I was suddenly back in my past life, standing on the edge of the rink, preparing for my final jump. I could see Celeste lurking in the shadows, a malicious glint in her eyes. The memory of the tree branch, strategically placed where I was going to land. The sickening crack of my leg as I fell. It all came flooding back. "You're pathetic," I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. "You're so afraid of losing that you're willing to cheat, to lie, to hurt your own sister." Celeste's face paled. "What are you talking about?" "I'm not afraid of you anymore, Celeste," I said, my voice strong and steady. "This time, I'm going to win, and you're going to watch." I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there, speechless and stunned. The past was the past. This was my future. And I was going to make it count. The official announcement came a few days later. Isabel Moreau, the rising star, was officially on Team USA, heading to the Winter Olympics in Paris. The news spread like wildfire. Reporters clamored for interviews, sponsors lined up with endorsement deals, and my parents? Well, they finally acknowledged my existence, but their belated attempts at reconciliation were met with icy indifference. Their apologies felt hollow, their praise insincere. They had spent years ignoring me, dismissing my dreams, and now they expected me to welcome them back with open arms? I didn't think so. Victor, ever perceptive, noticed my turmoil. "You seem troubled, Ayla," he said one day as we were warming up after a grueling practice session. I sighed, sinking onto the bench. "It's my parents," I admitted. "They're trying to make amends, but I don't know if I can forgive them." Victor nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Forgiveness is a powerful thing, Ayla, but it's also a personal choice. Don't let anyone pressure you into it." I feel so angry," I confessed. They wasted years on Celeste, years they could have spent supporting me. And now, when they see I might actually win, they suddenly want to be part of my life again. "They're blinded by ambition, Isla," Victor said gently. "They see you as a means to an end, a way to achieve their Olympic dreams. But you're not. You're your own person, with your own dreams and aspirations." He paused, his gaze intense. "Don't let their mistakes define you, Isla. Focus on your own path, your own goals. Prove to them and to yourself that you're not just Celeste's sister. You're Isla, and you're going to win." His words resonated deep within me. He was right. I couldn't let my parents' past actions dictate my future. I had to focus on my own journey, my own goals. I had to win for myself, not for them. With renewed determination, I threw myself into training. The Olympics were just weeks away, and I had to be ready. Victor pushed me harder than ever, refining my technique, honing my artistry, preparing me for the biggest competition of my life. We spent hours analyzing my routines, dissecting every jump, every spin, every nuance of expression. He challenged me to push my limits, to explore new ways of interpreting the music, to connect with the audience on a deeper level. "You have a gift, Isla," he said one day, his voice filled with admiration. "A rare combination of talent, passion, and resilience. Don't waste it." I wouldn't. I had come too far to let anything stand in my way. I had overcome betrayal, injury, and self-doubt. I had risen from the ashes, stronger and more determined than ever. And I was going to win. Not just for myself, but for all the underdogs, all the overlooked, all the ones who had been told they weren't good enough. As the days passed, my excitement grew. I couldn't wait to step onto the Olympic ice, to showcase my skills, to prove to the world what I was made of. But there was another reason, a deeper motivation that fueled my desire to win. I remembered the previous Olympics, the bitter taste of defeat, the humiliation of watching Celeste stand on the podium, her face beaming with triumph. I remembered the whispers of suspicion, the rumors of steroid use, the eventual disqualification that shattered her career and exposed her deceit. This time, it would be different. This time, I would win fair and square. I would win with my own talent, my own hard work, my own unwavering determination. I would win for the little girl who had been denied her dream, for the young woman who had been betrayed by her own family. I would win for myself, and I would savor every moment of it. Paris in winter was a fairy tale. The city, draped in a soft blanket of snow, shimmered under the pale sunlight. The Eiffel Tower, adorned with Olympic rings, stood tall and proud, a beacon of hope and inspiration. The energy was electric, a palpable buzz of excitement that permeated every corner of the city. The opening ceremony was a spectacle of light and sound, a dazzling display of French culture and Olympic spirit. Athletes from all over the world marched into the stadium, their faces beaming with pride, their national flags held high. I walked with Team USA, my heart swelling with emotion. This was it, the culmination of years of dreams, sacrifices, and relentless training. The Olympic Village was a melting pot of cultures, a vibrant tapestry of languages, traditions, and dreams. I met athletes from all walks of life, each with their own unique story to tell. There was Anya, a speed skater from Russia, with her fierce determination and infectious laugh. There was Kenji, a snowboarder from Japan, with his quiet intensity and zen-like calm. And there was Marco, a figure skater from Italy, with his flamboyant personality and dazzling smile. We spent hours exploring the village, sharing stories, exchanging tips, and forging friendships that would last a lifetime. We were competitors, yes, but we were also united by a shared passion, a common goal. We were Olympians. The first few days were a whirlwind of activity. I watched in awe as skiers soared through the air, snowboarders carved up the slopes, and speed skaters flew around the rink. The level of competition was breathtaking, the skill and athleticism on display truly inspiring. One evening, I watched Anya compete in the women's 1000 m speed skating final. The tension was palpable as the skaters lined up at the starting line, their muscles coiled, their eyes focused on the finish line. The starting gun fired, and they were off, a blur of motion as they raced around the track. Anya, with her powerful strides and unwavering determination, took the lead early on and never looked back. She crossed the finish line in a blaze of glory, her arms raised in triumph. The crowd erupted, their cheers echoing through the stadium. I rushed down to congratulate her, my heart filled with joy. "Anya, you were amazing!" I exclaimed, throwing my arms around her. "Thank you, Isla," she replied, her face beaming. "It was incredible. I can't believe I won." "You deserved it," I said sincerely. "You were the best." Watching Anya's victory ignited a fire within me. I was ready to compete, to give it my all, to leave everything I had on the ice. The excitement was building, the anticipation almost unbearable. This was my moment, my time to shine. "I can't believe she beat me," Celeste muttered, her voice a venomous whisper. She paced the hotel room like a caged tiger, her eyes wild, her hands clenched into fists. "That nobody, that Isabel. Who does she think she is?" Her mother, her face etched with worry, tried to soothe her. Celeste, honey, it's just one competition. You'll have plenty of other chances. No. Celeste whirled around, her voice rising. This is my chance. The Olympics. It was supposed to be my moment. Her father, his usual jovial demeanor, replaced by a grim frown, spoke up. Celeste, you need to calm down. This isn't like you. Calm down? Celeste scoffed. How can I calm down when that imposter is out there stealing everything I've worked for? She slammed her fist against the wall, the force of the blow rattling the framed photos of her past victories. I won't let her win, she hissed. I won't let her take my place. A dark glint entered her eyes. I know what I have to do. The whispers started in the practice rink. Skaters, coaches, even officials exchanged furtive glances, their voices hushed. Did you hear about Celeste? One would ask. Yeah, another would reply, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. They say she's back on the juice. The rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by the media's insatiable appetite for scandal. Reporters camped outside Celeste's hotel, microphones thrust in her face, cameras flashing incessantly. Celeste, is it true you're using performance-enhancing drugs? Celeste, are you afraid of losing to Isabel Moreau? Celeste, is your career over? Celeste, her face pale and drawn, tried to maintain her composure. These are all lies, she insisted. I'm not using anything. I'm clean. But her denials rang hollow. The pressure was mounting, the scrutiny unbearable. She could feel her world closing in on her, the walls of her carefully constructed image crumbling around her. The drug test came without warning. Two officials, their faces grim, escorted Celeste to a private room. She tried to protest, to feign ignorance, but it was no use. The sample was taken, the results analyzed. The verdict was swift and damning. Positive. The news broke like a bombshell. Celeste, the golden girl, the Olympic hopeful, had been caught cheating. Again. Her career, her reputation, her dreams, all shattered. Her parents, their faces etched with disbelief and despair, could only watch helplessly as their daughter's world imploded. How could you do this, Celeste? Her mother sobbed, her voice thick with disappointment. We trusted you, her father added, his voice shaking with anger. We sacrificed everything for you. Celeste, her eyes filled with shame and regret, could only mumble, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. But her apologies were meaningless. The damage was done. Her career was over. Her reputation was ruined. And her parents, their dreams of Olympic glory shattered, were left to pick up the pieces. I watched the whole drama unfold from a distance, a strange mix of pity and vindication swirling within me. Celeste had made her choices, driven by her own insecurities and insatiable ambition. And now, she was paying the price. It was a harsh lesson, but a necessary one. True success wasn't about winning at all costs. It was about integrity, perseverance, and the courage to be true to yourself. And that was a lesson Celeste, and perhaps even her parents, would never forget. The roar of the crowd was deafening. The lights were blinding. The ice beneath my skates felt impossibly smooth, a mirror reflecting the culmination of a lifetime of dreams. This was it. The Olympic finals. My heart pounded in my chest, a drumbeat echoing the rhythm of the music swelling through the arena. But beneath the nerves, a steely resolve settled in my core. I was ready. I had trained for this, sacrificed for this, poured my heart and soul into this moment. Victor's words echoed in my mind. Tell your story, Isla. Skate your truth. With a deep breath, I pushed off, gliding onto the center ice. The spotlight found me, and the world seemed to fade away. It was just me, the ice, and the music. My body moved with a newfound grace, a fluidity born from countless hours of practice and unwavering determination. Each jump was effortless, each spin a blur of precision, each gesture imbued with raw emotion. I wasn't just skating, I was dancing, painting a story on the ice with every move. The music swelled, and I soared into a triple axel, my body rotating flawlessly in the air. The landing was smooth, the transition seamless. The crowd gasped, their collective breath held captive by the magic unfolding before them. I poured every ounce of myself into the performance, channeling the years of frustration, the pain of betrayal, the unwavering support of Victor, and the burning desire to prove myself. This wasn't just about winning a medal, it was about redemption, about reclaiming my dream, about proving that I was more than just the other sister. As the final notes of the music faded, a hush fell over the arena. Then, the eruption. The applause was thunderous, a tidal wave of sound that washed over me, lifting me higher than any jump ever could. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the faces in the crowd. I had done it. The scores flashed across the board, confirming what everyone already knew. Isabel Moreau, Olympic gold medalist. The ceremony was a blur. The weight of the medal around my neck, the cheers of the crowd, the flash of cameras. It all felt surreal. As I stood on the podium, the national anthem playing, a single tear escaped and traced a path down my cheek. It was a tear of triumph, of vindication, of pure, unadulterated joy. My parents pushed their way through the throng of reporters, their faces a mixture of pride and something else. Shame? Regret? It was hard to tell. Ayla, my mother began, her voice trembling, we're so proud of you. We never doubted you, not really. My father, his eyes red-rimmed, placed a hand on my shoulder. You were amazing, sweetheart. We're so sorry for... Before he could finish, Celeste shoved past them, her face contorted with rage. This isn't fair, she shrieked. You stole this from me. It should have been me up there. I met her gaze, a flicker of pity softening my expression. No, Celeste, I said calmly. This is where I belong. You had your chance, and you threw it away. I turned away from them, the weight of the gold medal a comforting reminder of how far I had come. The past was finally behind me. This was my future, my victory, my moment. And no one, not even my own family, could take that away from me. I basked in the victory, the weight of the gold medal a tangible symbol of my triumph. The whirlwind of press conferences, interviews, and celebrations was a blur, a dizzying spectacle that I navigated with a newfound confidence. The world was at my feet, and I was ready to embrace it. But amidst the fanfare, a quiet moment arose. Victor found me on a secluded balcony overlooking the Parisian skyline, the Eiffel Tower twinkling in the distance. He simply smiled, a rare and genuine expression of pride. You did it, Ayla, he said, his voice husky with emotion. You proved them all wrong. We did it, Victor, I corrected, my voice thick with gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you. He chuckled, shaking his head. No, Ayla, this was all you. I merely guided you, helped you unlock the potential that was always there. He paused, his gaze intense. You are a true champion, Isla. Not just because of your talent, but because of your spirit, your resilience, your unwavering determination. Never forget that. His words resonated deep within me, a validation that transcended any medal or trophy. I had found a mentor, a friend, a father figure, in the most unexpected of places. And in that moment, I realized that the greatest victory wasn't the gold medal around my neck, but the journey I had taken to get there. The closing ceremony was a bittersweet affair, a farewell to the Olympic dream, a celebration of athleticism and camaraderie. As the Olympic flame was extinguished, a wave of sadness washed over me. But it was tempered by a sense of accomplishment, a knowledge that I had left my mark on the world. The journey back home was filled with reflection. I thought about my parents, their belated attempts at reconciliation, their lingering disappointment. I thought about Celeste, her shattered dreams, her bitterness and resentment. And I thought about Victor, his unwavering belief in me, his guidance and support. I knew that my relationship with my family would never be the same. The wounds of the past were too deep, the scars too prominent. But I also knew that I couldn't let their negativity define me. I had my own life to live, my own dreams to pursue. As the plane touched down on American soil, a sense of anticipation filled me. This was a new beginning, a chance to write my own story, to create a future filled with joy, passion, and purpose. I had overcome the odds, defied expectations, and emerged from the ashes of my past, stronger and more determined than ever. And I was ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. The future was mine, and I was ready to skate into it with my head held high and my heart filled with hope.